I want to start a new teaching series today, and we titled it Upside Down. And I want to just share some thoughts with you about living more like Jesus. You know, I've been a Christian for like 46 years, and I've seen a lot of things, and I've seen a lot of changes. And oftentimes, as I keep getting to know God, I realize that oftentimes God is not what I thought He was. That some of the stuff that I was taught was not really quite right. It wasn't 100% wrong, but it wasn't 100% right. And I'm not saying that what I'm going to teach you is 100% right, but I think that we're going to get a better picture of who Jesus is. So we're going to use a series of stories that are in the Bible, and we're going to try to bring out a more realistic picture of what Jesus is like, his heart, how he treated people, and I think that will definitely inspire you and encourage every one of us. We also want to try to show you some practical ways in which we can live more like Jesus. I think every one of us that believes is trying to grow in that faith, is trying to grow in that kind of commitment to Christ, so we can grow, so that if we have a better picture of Jesus, then we could just continue to move in that direction. So I really hope that this encourages you and it gives you a fresh view, a fresh perspective of Jesus and Christianity. I'm reminded of a story that this really happened, and I heard it from someone else. I wasn't there, but it's an amazing story that kind of gives you a picture of what Jesus is really like. There was this transvestite that actually decided to start attending church. And you know, it's not the typical church visitor that most churches have. So what's interesting is that when this transvestite visited this church, no one was bothered by it. No one was looking down on him. No one was judging him. And everyone knew that this was a man dressed like a woman. And as time continued to pass, this man continued to visit the church, dressed like a woman. And what's interesting is that the people in that church just loved him, received him, welcomed him. And of course, most of the people were welcoming and loving, but you know, you always have a few people that are so caught up in what's right. And some of those people were critical, some of those people were not happy. But to make the long story short, eventually, this person's life began to change. This person's life began to be healed. And through a series of relationships and love and God's goodness and grace, this person's life was transformed. And so eventually they asked them, why? What happened? Why did you stay? What happened that you continued to come? And he said, people welcomed me. People loved on me. People received me, and that blew me away. That actually gave me what I was looking for, which was an unconditional love. And that kind of gives you a picture. That gives you a realistic example of the heart of Jesus, what Jesus is really like. So the first story I want to start with today is going to be the story that is found in Matthew chapter 8, and it's the story of the leper. And I want to read a couple of verses to you to kind of give you a context of the story, and then I want to make a few observations. Here's what it says. Matthew chapter 8, verse 1 and 2. It says, when Jesus had come down from the mountain, a great multitude followed him. And behold, a leper came and worshiped him, saying, Lord, if you are willing, you can make me clean. And so those two verses tell us a lot. We'll read the next one later, but I want you to know, the first thing I want you to know is that Jesus is welcoming. The heart of Jesus is to welcome everyone. It doesn't matter if we're broken. It doesn't matter if we're unclean. It doesn't matter if we are traumatized. It doesn't matter if we're messed up. The heart of Jesus is to welcome everyone. One of the interesting things I see here, you know, I'm always looking for symbols and typologies, is that Jesus came down. The story says that Jesus came down from the mountain. Well, if Jesus came down from the mountain, most of the time, Jesus would go to a mountain to pray. So this is telling me that where Jesus was, because here's the contrast, Jesus came down from the mountain but meets this leper. So it's a big contrast, because if Jesus was in the mountain, he was praying. He was connected with God. He was in an intimate place with God. Jesus was at his best, man. He was infused by the presence of God, but that's divine power. And so he is at the top of his game, and he comes down from that condition. He comes down in that condition from the mountain, and he meets this guy that's a leper. That's crazy. Because what we see here is that Jesus turns everything upside down. He is not going to act according to the rules and what is expected by the establishment. What we see now is that the leopard approaches Jesus. This is pretty cool, because the leopard himself is turning things upside down. Because by society, by the establishment, by the religious leaders, a leper could never be in a crowd. It was unlawful. It was forbidden. He couldn't approach Jesus. He couldn't approach anybody. So, but this leopard is saying, I don't really care what people think. I don't really care what the rules are right now. I don't really care what's expected of me, and I don't really care what people think of me. I need to get to Jesus. And he approaches Jesus. And he approaches Jesus with that understanding that he himself, the leopard, is breaking the rules. But here's the cool part. He bows down before Jesus. He bows down to honor Jesus as a sign of respect, as a sign that he sees something in this Jesus that is welcoming, that is loving, that embraces him and opens arms in order for him to be approachable. Jesus is approachable. Jesus is welcoming. And I want you to see here that this whole act, this whole scenario is forbidden. It's against the religious law. It's against the laws of society. What's happening here should not happen if Jesus were to follow all the rules. Now, I'm not saying we have to break all the rules. Don't get me wrong. But what I'm saying is that there are some laws where Jesus is going to turn upside down. And he's just going to go to a whole different level.